Welcome to Catholic Mom Mindset, a daily show where you learn to walk closely with the Holy Spirit so you can live the life God is calling you to. I'm your host, Sterling Jaquith. Let us begin. You wish your kids would grow in virtue? I think that's a pretty common thing for most Catholic moms. We're aware of this idea that we want our kids to grow in virtue, but most of us have had no training. I think very few moms could even list what the Catholic virtues are. And then when you go to the internet, there's all these different types of virtues, different lists. And yet we know there's something important about that virtue thing. And so I just want to demystify it a little bit and to encourage you to incorporate virtues training into your family. So for a long time, I talked about the We Choose Virtues program. I'm sure it's wechoosevirtues.com. And it was a Protestant program, but I think there were 12 virtues maybe, and a catchphrase that went with each one of them. And I really liked that. They had a lot of products, and I don't feel like you needed any of the products except the cards. They just had cards that explained the virtues and the catchphrase. And we use that in our family a lot. But now I lean on the virtues book from Catholic Sprouts a lot more. So they have this, it's like a spiral bound book, and it's actually a 12-week program, but that's not how I use it. I just use it when I'm noticing that the kids or one kid in particular is doing the not virtue, right? So if they're not living with humility, if they are not expressing gratitude, if they aren't engaging in forgiveness and they're being angry, right? I'll just I pull this up like an instructional guide, and I kind of go to that week, and then I look through it. And then depending on, if it's my 11-year-old, I go, hey, you have to read week 7. She knows too now. She sees it. I come up with, and I'm like, hey, you got to do this. But for the younger kids, I'll sit with them and say some things, or I'll just myself kind of give myself a primer about that virtue, and I think of ways to incorporate it more with the kids. And so much of virtue training is about language and reinforcement. We have to have language around what we want them to do. We tend to just say, don't do that. But we don't always take the time to say, you know what? In that moment right there, you were not acting charitably. What would a response look like if you had more charity in your heart for your sister? And then catching them doing it and then labeling it. You were so charitable right then. I love your generous heart. I see that you really just forgave her right there. And I might do it publicly and I might do it privately. I have some kids that like to be praised publicly, and that's more powerful to them. And I have some kids that like to be praised privately. Like it embarrasses them to be called out in a positive way in front of other people. And so I know this can just feel like a big and overwhelming topic, but much more to me than the importance of school and like history and science. I know this sounds crazy, but I want my kids to be virtuous. I want them to live a virtuous life. And for me, that comes down to helping them understand the fruits of the Holy Spirit and exhibit those. And one of the ways that we do that is we train them in virtues. So there's just tons of resources. Resources is not the problem. The problem is your brain wants to be confused about virtues and how to teach it. Or it wants to be perfectionist about it. And I just want it to be in your atmosphere of your thinking. Like, get a book or a program and leave it around so you can see it. You don't have to have a 12-week program. You don't have to be like, oh, we're on week 7 and do the homework and we're going to do this coloring sheet that says charity on it. You don't have to do that. But if you're not familiar with the words and you're not using the words in your home or catching your kids be virtuous and telling them, that is just such a great place to start. It is such an easy place to start. And I think as Catholic moms, we're called to teach our children how to grow in virtue. It is a lifelong pursuit. So they're not going to be black belts by the time they leave your home. But my goal is to give them language and to point it out when I see it. And I just want to share that mission with you guys because I think it's a really worthy one. So I will link up We Choose Virtues and the Virtues book from Catholic Sprouts. I'm sure there's many others, but those are the ones I have used, and I like both of them. And I think they can be really helpful. All right, you guys, love you. Praying for you. Have a blessed day. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Catholic Mom Mindset. To learn more about growing closer to the Holy Spirit, check out our free resources at madeforgreatness.co. Thank you so much for listening and have a blessed day.